As long as you take enough shots, one of them's gonna land, right? If you're doing the same job in 1 year from now that you're doing today, then that's considered a failure or a miss. You should always try to automate yourself out of whatever you're working on.
You might be a technical expert, a VC might not be, or an investor might not be. So how do you frame it in a way in which they can understand both like the problem, the solution, and then the TAM?
Planes are literally falling out of the sky and people are dying because of this. And I'm probably one of the top power users in the world that understand how do you build complex machines in a reliable way. If I'm not going to solve it, who else will?
This is Dan Meiji, CEO of Firestorm, and this week on the Drone Wars podcast, we have Karthik Gollapudi from Sift. Karthik, thanks for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Hey, so why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? Like, where did you grow up? And then talk to us a little bit about your career.
Yeah, of course. So grew up in LA, grew up actually near the border of Glendale, Pasadena, quiet little suburb. It was actually right outside of JPL though. So I grew up going to those tours, always interested in science fiction, the future. Ended up doing first robotics in high school. That's the competitive robotics. Pretty fun. Although this is a bit of a weird situation, but I went to art school for my junior high and high school. I was the one kid that did the STEM classes there, but I think 40% of my class did theater. Everyone wanted to go to Juilliard. Juilliard was the dream, not Harvard or Stanford or anything like that.
Right.
So I was that one odd STEM kid. But I think it was because my sister was a dancer, and parents, it's the whole 2-for-1. You want to put them in the same school. Ended up joining SpaceX out of school. Worked on the Dragon flight software team, the capsule that takes astronauts and cargo to space. So by the time I left, I was in charge of mission over mission operations, which is basically the testing, the certification, the cat herding involved with getting humans up to space. So had a lot of fun with that. Left to start Sift in 22. So I'm 31 years old. I left SpaceX as an old man at the age of 28, I think 27 or 28. So the average age of my team was 24, I think. I looked at it when I left and I was like, wow.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So I'd say that's high level on the career side. On the personal side, I recently got married. My wife and I live in West Hollywood now. She's not at all in this industry or this sector, so she's just looking as an external observer and laughing at all this testosterone in there. But no, her and I have fun. It's I think the big shifts right now for me are having another place where my time goes as opposed to just work all the time. I think at SpaceX, that's kind of just if you start your career there, it's just you're always dialed in for work, and now it's I get to share that with someone else. So that's kind of where I am in life stage, I would say.
So talk to us a little bit about coming right out of school and going to SpaceX, right? Did you have foundational education in how to build, robust, scalable hardware products? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
No, nothing. I knew nothing. I don't know why they hired me. I think it was just a very lucky type of situation. And for me, I wasn't even indexing on hardware. I wasn't I need to go to SpaceX, or this is 2018. So fun fact, actually, when I told people from my high school that I worked at SpaceX, they didn't know what that was. I'd have to introduce it as Amber Heard's boyfriend, his company. So that was it's crazy. The world's changed a lot since 2018. Coming out of school, I just studied computer science, more broadly, computer science overall. Nothing related or specific to hardware. Even in undergrad, I didn't do SAE racing. I think it was just that as long as you're just sharp and going to put in the hustle and the grit for it, SpaceX is actually a place where you can learn everything. There's a lot of safety mechanisms as well at the company that allow it to hire really young and not break things in the same way that I've actually noticed with a lot of our customers now at Sift. They tend to be a little bit more senior, really talented folks with a lot of experience. But I've also noticed, I think they have to do that because there are fewer guardrails. Whereas SpaceX, you can really push the boundaries, break things, and there's a lot of different checks that would catch, like a lot of redundancies that would catch mistakes by like a new grad who's just trying a lot of stuff out.
That's incredible. Do you think that's what kind of allows them to push the boundaries of innovation?
Yes, I think that's one part of it for sure. Part of it is also, it's like, what is it? I think Elon says like innovation is the number of iterations you can make and the time between each iteration. And when you have a bunch of like 22-year-olds out of school that are going to be in the office, like with their friends are also the people in the office, and you're there like working on stuff at like 9, 10 p.m., like the amount of iterations and things you can do, you're just pumping out twice as much stuff as any other company can. You're like moving really quickly. So like the number of iterations is high. And then the other thing is the entire company culture is also encouraging people to make changes. It's almost like what I've seen with our company now is like, as you make changes, there's also like a little bit of a, what do they call it? It's almost like the bullwhip effect, where it's like, there's a little bit of like a latent delay in certain things. And it's like, you don't want to make too many changes because then everything just gets chaotic. But I think there's like a healthy tension of always pushing to do better. Like the entire company operates on this cadence where it's like, they're always like having those like agile practices of like, hey, let's go work on something and then let's go iterate on it. Let's go do retros, see what worked, what didn't work. And it's like a constant sense of improvement. Actually, the VP of software, this really smart guy, Jeff Dexter, he told us once, he's like, hey, if you're doing the same job in 1 year from now that you're doing today, then that's considered a failure or a miss. You should always try to automate yourself out of whatever you're working on. And I think that's kind of the whole philosophy of like, figure out, one, should you be doing this? And if you need to do it, how can you like script this and automate it? It's going to be a lot safer, more reliable, to have something that's deterministic like a computer rather than like a new intern who has to go follow the instructions.
So talk to us then about like, what was the impetus to leave SpaceX and start your current company?
So I had no intention of leaving, by the way, when I did leave. It was, I was very happy there. I was like I felt like kind of at my local maximum, and very much enjoyed my time there. The only reason for leaving was actually kind of the idea with this whole company in the first place, which was that I was seeing where there are a lot of these software failures in the physical world. And the first one happened in 2019 with the Starliner incident. And that's when I started paying a lot more attention to a lot of the challenges people were having to go build modern hardware, like a very software rich machines, things with like autonomous software, complex embedded systems. And finally in 2021 was when we had the Boeing 737 MAX incidents, right? With the planes literally falling out of the sky. And that was related to autopilot software. And I was like, looking around, it's like, there isn't really something in the market for this. Planes are literally falling out of the sky and people are dying because of this. And I'm probably one of the top like power users in the world that understand how do you build complex machines in a reliable way. And it's like this, it's almost like this new shift. Ever since we've left the company, we've actually seen it's more of like a overall shift in philosophy of how people are building machines nowadays in like a data-driven way. As opposed, it's kind of like the shift in the 90s to 2000s from waterfall to agile software engineering. There's like a similar movement in the hardware engineering world. And there really wasn't any sort of like thought leader that's evangelizing this and building the tools that go support that, very much like Atlassian was back in the day. So I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like, if I'm not going to solve it, who else will? So that was really the impetus. And it was actually the same day that I like signed off on the launch readiness review paperwork for the CRS-25, one of the Dragon missions, that I ended up leaving because I felt a bit of a responsibility to finish what I signed up for. But then as soon as I signed off on that, I left and we started building this.
Drone Wars is recorded from Firestorm's global headquarters in San Diego, California. Each week on the podcast, we bring you cutting-edge insights from unmanned industry leaders. Listen as they share the breakthroughs and technologies they're working on, the hard lessons they've learned, and the bold predictions about what the next 5 to 10 years in unmanned systems and advanced manufacturing have in store for us. Enjoying the show so far? Then be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now back to the show. So Karthik, you understood that there was a need for this, right? Mm-hmm. When did you start seeing other people kind of validate that they needed this as well.
Whether or not the people recognize it, like planes were falling out of the sky. So there was like the physical downstream effects of it. When is it that other people started talking about this? It sounds like people actually realized this even before we started the company. They just didn't have a solution. So a lot of the companies we work with now, especially on the defense prime side, they've been exploring these things. They have these like, I think they get caught up in maybe like this stuff kind of gets masked in these buzzwords that people might not pay attention to, like digital transformation. But underneath, whenever we talk to these people, they're actually trying to solve the same concepts. It's the same problem. They just didn't have, they didn't know what the solution looked like, but they were very well aware of the problem. And I think it's been over the last decade, that's when people started thinking about this. And the thing that changed over the last decade is that if you look at modern machines, look at the bill of materials of a modern machine, almost like 50% of it is software now. So suddenly you introduce all this complexity in the last 2 decades in these machines that you don't actually know how. It's not like you can just go down to shop floor, ask a mechanic, like this valve connects to this tank and this pipe, and it's going to behave this certain way when that valve is actuated. It's actually a lot different where it's more like the Boeing 737 MAX incident, where you had two angle attack sensors feeding the autopilot system. And yes, the angle attack sensors are two-fault tolerant, but the thing is that the software behaved in such a way that if one of them went down, it actually disregarded both of them. And like that's not something you would intuitively see with your eyes, just looking at something. And imagine this times like a million parts on a plane.
Right. So talk to us now about your journey, like in starting Sift. So you leave SpaceX, right? You have this thesis. How did you put together kind of your Avengers team to go solve the problem and find the money to go build it?
Yeah, of course. So actually, the original when we started the company, I originally I was aware of the problem, but it was actually the beginning of 2022 when I reconnected with Austin, our now CTO. But at the time, I had been on his team when I first joined SpaceX in 2018, and then I went to Flight Software. He was building a lot of like internal tools, like the manufacturing software, and he had left SpaceX. He was at Riot Games, and then he was like, "Hey, Karthik, I've been on vacation for a year, like looking to get back into a hardware company, a little bit more intense." And and that's when I told him you should go build all this observability stuff that people need in the market, very much like what we had at SpaceX, but a little bit more like, I wouldn't say it's like one to one. It's like inspired by the process, but it's actually very different in practice. But I told him he should go do this, and he was like, "Oh, it's funny because there's like 4 different people that are trying to hire me to go build this." And that was actually part of like when I started paying attention, but I didn't intend to go do this myself. I was just more telling him to do it. And then him and I spoke with, I think, 17 companies. And out of the 17 we spoke with, 14 of them, we realized they either needed a solution now, they will need a solution soon, or they didn't realize it, but they will need a solution. We ended up, those are almost all 14 of those are our customers today. And yeah, that was kind of like the original, the synthesis of it. And the reason why I ended up doing it with him was actually because he knows how to go build this. I knew this was like this problem. It's not like a web app type of problem. It's very much like a deep infrastructure, distributed systems, high performance, computer science type of a problem. And that was more like where Austin's skill set was. I was like a flight software, embedded software kind of guy. So that's where Austin was saying, "Hey, I don't know how to use this. I can go build this." And for me, I was like, "Oh, I know how to use this, but I'm probably not the best person to go build this." And then that's when we realized like, let's do that. So that's how it originally started. And then starting the company, the initial fundraise, we had no idea what we were doing. It's probably like, Dan, you're like, go back 2 companies, like for yourself, right? It's like completely deer in the headlights, software engineer just figuring this out. So a lot of it was like talking to friends, learning on the go. Honestly, it was all just like the same stuff you learn at SpaceX, just like iterate really quickly. There was actually a period where we started talking to some VCs. I think we spent like 2 months and no one really understood what we were doing. It seemed like some weird niche problem. No one knew what the word telemetry was. They're like, "That sounds like a small TAM." And then we like took like, there was like a 2-week hiatus. I remember because there's this one big venture firm that's actually invested a lot in our space, and they take 2 weeks off in August. And during that 2-week hiatus, that's when we like kind of stopped. We redid all of our materials, our story, all the feedback we got. And then we came back And literally, I think everyone we spoke to, we were getting term sheets from. So it's an iterative process. You just kind of learn, and as long as you take enough shots, one of them's gonna land, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible lesson you just shared right there. I mean, it's something I think a lot of entrepreneurs, the successful ones, figure out, right? Which is you have to take feedback, right? And like understand that you might be a technical expert, a VC might not be, or an investor might not be. So how do you frame it in a way in which they can understand both like the problem, the solution, and then the TAM? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Kudos to you for figuring that out, because a lot of people end up getting stuck and then they get angry at the investor as though it's their fault. You have to have some responsibility and be like, we can do a better job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. No, totally agree with you. I mean, there's like a lot of more, even like smaller things that we learn in that, which is more around like you have to speak the same language of your audience. This all kind of gets into like, how do you sell even? It's like, you don't want to just say like, you're the best or whatever is important to yourself. It's more about like what is more important to the recipient. And I think there's a lot of things we learn in that process and like over the last 2.5 years.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about where you are today. How many people do you have? How many customers? Maybe some of the funding stuff, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, of course. So we're around 40 folks. We had a recent little growth spurt, and we're around 40, say about 3/4 engineering, 1/4 on the go-to-market side. And then we've raised about 25 million. Our Series A was led by Google Ventures, which is not a very like traditional firm investing in this space, and but they are very, very sharp, awesome folks. Oh, Riot Ventures and Fika both led our seed, so I think you know some of those guys. And then around 20 something customers. We are working with probably a lot of I would say what I would bet on is like some of the best, fastest growing, like startup companies. So like Impulse Space, K2 Space, Astronis, like people who are just knocking it out of the park, like executing, building, moving really quickly. And then we're also working with a few of the defense primes as well, because like as everyone is always talking about mobilizing the industrial base, it really actually starts at the industrial base. So a lot of that is we're working across the gamut from large. And I think the value prop that gets actually better the bigger your company gets. You have more data, more people, more complex hardware, a lot more capabilities, right? It's like you're probably very acutely aware of this, which is that it's like a lot of these slower moving companies are because they also have more capability you have to account for and build into. Whereas like if you're just doing like something on the simple in the early days, you can move really quickly when there's like less capability. When I started the company, I was single, 27 or 28-year-old guy. Literally, there's no other responsibilities at this time. That's part of why I was like, if you don't do it now, like when are you going to do it? Merit has less weight than you would intuitively think, especially as an engineer. I think people want to work with people that they like. And I think it's important to like invest in the vibes in a way.
Thanks for listening to the Drone Wars podcast. Each week, we bring you fascinating conversations with leaders shaping the future of air, sea, land, and space technologies. Catch new episodes wherever podcasts can be found. Until then, we'll see you next time.